Some people in the NBA Top Shot community elevate it to new heights with their ingenuity, their creativity, and their capacity to create. If you've ever used a showcase checker, if you've ever built or seen an NBA Top Shot avatar for your Twitter profile, you very likely used a tool by my next guest. He also recently announced his own NFT project. It's a great interview. It's fun, it's engaging, it's really interesting. So let's just dive right into it. All right. So, Moment Nerd, I'm really grateful that you are here with me today, that we can record this conversation. There's a lot to talk about. You have a NFT project that you recently are releasing, which is super exciting. Just as someone who's active in the Top Shot and NFT space, you are literally active in the Top Shot and NFT space now, which is cool. And you've created some of the most interesting tools that the community has just really enjoyed. And I'm truly interested to hear more about what went into that and how you come up with these ideas. So thank you for joining me today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. And it's been so fun to be talking to people that I feel like I'm friends with you guys on social media, and it's great to actually talk to you in person, face to face. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I totally agree as well. I was talking about this the other day. It almost feels like these connections that we make through Twitter are as strong or stronger than people that we've known for like years. And we've known each other through Twitter via avatars for like a few months. So
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's really fun.
it's truly amazing. So I wanted to start off with a question about a product or a tool that you created a few months back, which was the avatar builder. So I can recall when you built this tool, it was kind of like it was such an amazing tool. So many people used it. So many people started changing their Twitter PFPs, and this was at a time when other NFTs were dominating PFPs or profile picture. And it was also at a time when Top Shot, the sentiment about Top Shot was kind of sliding further and further and further down the hill. So I'm curious, what made you come up with that idea? And did the sentiment of Top Shot affect you at all? Is that a reason you started building this product?
Yeah, great question. So so the Avatar project really came about when I was, messing around on Twitter, and I saw, this concept come through from amazing designer who I know you have had on your show before, bayusBrain or Yusuf, and he had this, beautiful design, this really cool idea for this avatar, and I instantly was like, I got to work with this guy. Like it was like this instant connection. And I started like messaging him on Twitter, and I'm sending him like funny, love notes. We gotta meet up and work together on this. And it turns out he's an awesome guy, super talented. And so, yeah, we partnered up and spent a few weeks kind of building that out. And, I think part of the motivation, as you said, was sentiment was kind of down, and I saw this too, where I found I'm looking at my, account valuation and feeling bad about it. And it's like, what else can we do here? I mean, this product is really amazing. There's a lot more to it than just the financial side. And so let's play it. Let's have some fun, and let's see what else we can do to kind of, get people engaged and playing around with this stuff. And, the avatar stuff I think is really fun. I mean, I still keep it up to date. People I see on Twitter all the time have those avatars still. And, it's a good way to just kind of feel connected to the community too. I see somebody with that avatar and I'm like, oh, I have something in common with you. Like, I want to follow you. I want to hear what you have to say, get your thoughts about, Top Shot and that sort of thing. So, it's been a really nice way to kind of bring the community together and give that identity to us, in a certain way. So, fun thing to do. I hope to someday set it up so that you can actually set your avatar in Top Shot itself instead of these like random color things. So I keep bugging the team, and I'm sure I'm very annoying, but maybe someday we can do that. But
Yeah, I think I want to say someone asked Roham on Twitter recently about it. And I think it was in the Nine Lives Lounge.
yes, I saw
Yeah.
that. He's like, nope.
It's like not exactly top of the priority list.
Yeah.
But I
which
mean, just as an aside, I think that there's definitely opportunities for them to at least make like set art or things like that.
yeah,
At
oh, for
least give
sure.
us a little bit of personality or identity that we get to choose beyond colors. Um,
Yeah.
so you also created the showcase checker, which was super cool and kind of straightforward, but very useful. You also created the shot or not, which was really fun to use and to see moments and grade them and see what everyone else thought. And then you also did something very similar to that with Pack Rip as a season end awards.
Mhm.
So instead of going to each of those, which I feel like are a little bit more straightforward,
Yeah.
my question for you is: are there any ideas that are also on your list? It's funny because I asked this to Bayus as well, but like, are there any other ideas that are on your list or ways that you feel that we could continually improve the Top Shot experience?
Yeah, there's lots of things. And it's funny because last Friday was just like explosion of Top Shot on Twitter. The team rolled out so many things for the birthday and had so many announcements and all these giveaways. But later that evening, Roham tweeted something that I think was actually the most important news of the day, which is about the work that they're doing on these non-custodial wallets that are going to enable this whole ecosystem of third-party marketplaces and different ways for people to build around your moments in that experience in a pretty deep way. You look at a team like Floaty, where say you have a moment that is very valuable, and you want to hold on to that thing, but also is there a way for you to get some liquidity? So they've got this solution of basically use that as collateral for a loan, and then you can kind of use that money to invest in other NFTs, do whatever you want, and then if you don't pay that loan back, you get they take over your moment. So that kind of stuff, I feel like, is really going to unleash a ton of creativity. I mean, I can think of a bunch of things that I would love to do if I had the time. I mean, one thing I would love to do is this idea of like trade tickets, right? So you trade into moments and you get back a pack of random S1 moments, which is really cool, and I like that idea. But what if you could do something else with that, where instead of trading it in for a chance at a random moment, what if you can get the community? There's 1,000 people, they all put their 300 trade tickets into this site. The site goes through and sells them all on the marketplace, and then you have some money. You can go out and buy like a lot of really cool moments and have this fractionalized share of this really cool set of moments. And that's not something where you have to invest in a ton of money. It's kind of, you've got some moments that are kind of sitting around and not doing anything. So hey, I'd rather have a 1/1000 share of like a KD run it back than 3 floor moments. It's like that kind of thing. I think is a trade-off that we can start to enable as developers, and I think we'll start to see stuff like that come out over time. So that's what I'm excited about in the future.
So it's the DAO aspect, right? If I'm understanding DAO correctly.
Yep. And you see some acquisitions that Dapper's definitely leaning in that direction. They just acquired Brud and built out a whole new division that's around DAOs and enabling people to create DAOs. So that type of stuff is definitely on their radar, and I'm excited about that because I think there's stuff that's going to pay off down the line that's going to be really cool to see.
For sure, I totally agree with that. And it seems like they're hinting all the time lately about something's happening and this like Blockdo wallet idea, this decentralized. So it's very cool. The other thing I wanted to ask you too was I was listening to some old podcasts yesterday that you were on, and there was one with Own the Moment where they were tipped by you that there was some kind of an Easter egg about finals showcase challenges based on player stats. And
Yes.
so I'm very curious, how did you find that? Are you like scraping the directory of Top Shot every morning?
I am not, but I came about that. There was actually a note in office hours that week that said, "Hey, by the way, our developers may or may not have planted some Easter eggs into the site, and just FYI." And I was like, "Oh, well, that's interesting." And so, I'm a developer, and I had been building tools, random stuff around the Top Shot API, so I kind of knew my way around it, and started poking around in some of the places that I felt were most obvious. And sure enough, it kind of led me down this rabbit hole of this page where you look in the source and it says, hey, we're going to build out this whole, daily fantasy thing around the finals where you set your lineups based on your moments and then you get points and we're going to give away whatever. And it was all spelled out in the source code, like very clearly they did that on purpose. Like they didn't have to do that. It was, a clear thing. And so, yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, this is cool. What do I do with it? And at the time, I had like 3 followers on Twitter and like, but I love the Own the Moment podcast. And so I just, sent TJ a DM on Twitter, like, hey, bud, here's this thing I found. Do you care? And he was like, oh my gosh, like this is cool. So, he shared it out there. And so that was really fun to see. Although, the coda on this story is like, we never saw that, right? And never heard from them about, why not. I haven't checked lately. It might still be up there. But they definitely did some stuff around the daily fantasy. And I do think a lot of it is probably behind the scenes, legal stuff. You're a big company, you have ideas and just can't always have the time or way to pull that off. But, it was fun.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they did create something kind of similar. It wasn't exactly what we thought it was going to be, but definitely similar. Definitely a lot of speculation, people buying like PJ Tucker moments and, and it's kind of funny to also to listen back to it. And they're like, although, they were a footstep away from this happening, but they're like, go buy Brooklyn Nets moments, like load up, stack up on the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, like 10 KD, 40 Ks that, that's awesome. Although I should have held them because now they're back. But anyway.
Yeah, that was great. So the other thing I wanted to ask you, I know I asked you like what things you are excited about in the future of Top Shot. So you mentioned this decentralized aspect of the wall, of holding it in your own wallet. Is there anything else? And the one thing that I think about sometimes, and I was wondering if you had an opinion on this, is like the social and community and networking side to Top Shot, because right now I feel like it's very much third party, which it is. It's Twitter. Twitter owns the NFT network side of things. I'm wondering if Twitter will continue that reign, or if these very strong, like decentral but central products like Top Shot can do something to grab that audience and have them play more on their own platform. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's 2 sides to it. One is, I think it would be great for them to do more in that space, and even simple stuff where it's like, the other day I had an idea, just random thing to like, I want to give a gift back to the, I drew a locker room pack, and I was like, I'll just give back a random moment just to the person. And you can't even like put a note in there to say why I did. This person's going to get this, Brooke Lopez or whatever it was that I sent over, and they're going to be like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And you don't even have, that ability to just send a quick little message to some people, or, and I do think that there's opportunities, especially, as higher end collectors maybe want to make some offers on some of these moments and ways to kind of use the social aspect to get a little liquidity in the market too. And plus just for fun, I think, like you said, there's such a community that's built around it. I think that makes a lot of sense. At the same time, I know that, from a product perspective, it's hard to build that. You need to moderate, you need to, build in all these tools, and they're actually doing a pretty good job, I think, in Twitter. Discord is what it is, but they're, improving that all the time. And I think, using these third-party tools, oftentimes, as they're still a startup, and I would rather have them focus their engineering and a lot of their product time on building out the main product first, and then let's layer those social things on over time as we build a team or whatever. But I would love to see it personally, so we'll see.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just thinking big here, which I know you like to do too in your normal 9 to 5. So do you have any other opinions or ideas or things that you're looking forward to or concerned about, let's say, on season 3 or series 3?
Yes. Honestly, I'll go on the concern side. So I will say this. So, first of all, I'm super excited about the NFL side. I love basketball, love NBA, but football is kind of a little bit higher on my list in terms of fandom. Mostly because I'm in Seattle. We don't have the Sonics anymore, which is so sad.
That's true. Sucks.
But still love the NBA. But for me, like, to be able to collect Seahawks moments, like, that's really exciting to me. And we've got this product coming out that's going to be all debuts. You're gonna have these superstars who are out there for the first time. Like, there's going to be a frenzy around that thing that is just going to be really exciting and fun, and also I think a little bit scary. Like we saw what happened with the NBA side, where you get that peak and then it slowly, trickles down. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to see that on the NFL side as well. But I do worry that if you look at what's coming in the next few months on S3, I mean, what moments am I personally really excited about? There's a Clay TSD that hopefully will come out soon. Some of the rookies, getting a Cade moment, or I've got my own favorite people from college that I would love to collect. But if I were to think through, like, what are the 25 moments I'm most excited about owning over the next 4 months? 23 of them are on the NFL side, and 2 or 3 are on the NBA side. And I just worry a little bit about, the min counts are higher. You've got all your, collector score should be lower. What is it about season 3 that's a little bit better than just going out and getting the series 2 or the series 1 moment of that? So that's the kind of stuff I worry about a little bit. And it's not a big worry because that team does such a good job of managing these things. They're aware of this, right? They're going to find ways to keep us excited and engaged and build out new things. I mean, run it back is awesome. They're going to come out with stuff. But if I had a concern, that's it. It's just like, how do you kind of balance, these 2 products and people with limited budgets who are going to be excited about spending on the NFL side?
For sure. And that's such a good point too, which is like, how many of these S3 moments are you really going to be excited about? And actually, I think it was the coach on Twitter,
yeah, love that guy,
who made a really interesting thread about his predictions along that same wavelength of an idea, which is that he sees it similar to how the Susables app is actually currently working, where there's going to be a ton of moments, very easily accessible moments, and you're going to be trading back and forth. And that is kind of the way to get new users more interested, perhaps, of having like their own what's it called, binder of moments in a way, and we just get to trade, and they don't have maybe not a lot of value, but it's like that enjoyment of building your set. And that, to me, that actually made so much sense. Yes. And mainly for the point that you're making, which is that you're not buying them intrinsically because like they're so valuable, because you might as well just get the higher collector score with the S2, but maybe you want to complete that set, or I'm sure, like you're saying, they're going to come up with something interesting. And also, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, and this isn't, I'm not trying to FUD, the NBA side. I actually think long term, like, this is so good to have this NFL product. I think it's going to bring in so many people. You think after the Super Bowl, people are going to be hooked. They're going to be wanting to do stuff. And here you go with, the All-Star game, and then you've got the playoffs, and people are just going to come into these ecosystems. And I think just, it's more people is better in this space. And this is absolutely one of the best ways to bring in more people. So I'm really excited, kind of medium to long term, about S3. Just a little concerned with the shorter term.
Yeah, you make a great point. And I was talking to another guy who was actually a little bit concerned about the NFL thing. But what you say, and what I've heard other people say too, which is like, you're growing the pie. Like, bottom line, you're growing the audience, and that is good in the long term.
Tons of network effects in this space too, of like, it just is really, really helpful. So.
And the one other item I would say too is that when you mentioned how we saw that big spike in February, let's say on Top Shot, which I also experienced, I joined kind of at particularly the wrong time, which is the same as you. Instead of crying into our drinks, we can just move on. But the thing that I seem to think is that when they started advertising already for NFL, which was very, very different, to me, that indicated that they understand this wave of interest, and they want to build up that massive wave of interest now, and not like get surprised by it later, but build it up now. And I think that that's going to create a healthier market. And so I'm actually like, the more I think about it, the happier I am that they're doing that, because there's people that are complaining about it. Oh, Top Shot isn't out of beta yet. What are you guys doing? But no, this makes a whole lot of sense, because they want to have a better predictive model of what that user base looks like, and not get absolutely blindsided all of a sudden.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I do think, again, going back to like, I'm a startup guy in real life, and so I'm around startups all the time. And, you think back in February, like, this was a small team dealing with this huge amount of, work that they had to go and do, and let alone raising, two, multi-million-dollar, hundreds of millions of dollars of funding. That takes time. Building that team, hiring that team, training up that team takes time. And you're running this like massive, 10x, 100x kind of growth wave, and trying to manage all those expectations, and the token economy and all the stuff that goes on with NFTs is even different than a normal startup. And like, I'm amazed that they're able to do as well as they did. I mean, it's really a testament to the strength of that core team. And now that they are at a point where they've had time, they've been able to build up, and we have that full team ready to go and execute. Like, I'm super excited to see how they're going to handle this, and learn the lessons from the NBA side. And I actually have a ton of confidence that they're going to do a great job with it. So
Yeah,
we'll
I totally agree. And last question I want to ask about Top Shot and sort of future vision and prediction. Do you have any ideas around hardcourt, or what
yes.
you would like to see in hardcourt, or just what are you thinking about hardcourt right now?
Yeah, I mean, hardcourt is such an interesting part of the Top Shot story, and it feels like, here's my opinion. I'll say honestly, I'm not super excited about hardcourt. I think it's interesting to see the team talking about it and trying it out and realizing, you know what, this isn't great. And I love the fact that they're able to try something new, recognize it doesn't work, and either go back to the drawing board, or maybe they'll just get rid of it. And I would be totally fine with that, because I feel like they've got so much on their plate already that they're focused on. I would love to have them, spend that extra time and energy making the core product better, rather than trying to go and do this whole separate thing at this point in time. Maybe someday down the road they can do that. But I do, again, just totally goes back to this team and the fact that they are smart enough to know that, like, yeah, they could have gotten that thing out there. They probably would have made a lot of money for themselves and done a short-term thing, but longer term, it hurts the brand. And it's not great if they're rolling out stuff that's, not at their very, very high level of execution. And to be able to try something out, recognize it doesn't work, reiterate and try it again, like, that's a really important discipline for any company to have. And I appreciate that we're seeing that kind of in real time play out. So we'll see.
Yeah. And that makes it, you make a good point too, which I feel like not enough people talk about. And you also, again, you have direct experience with this, which is, this is a massive company at this point in terms of valuation.
Yeah.
And we have access to them like they're our neighbors. It's like, I can go DM a community manager right now and just start chatting. It's like, I think that part is also really unique and amazing. And the one thing I would just say about hardcourt though is, again, I don't remember who made this thread a while back, but someone who was very bullish on this idea of hardcourt was saying that hardcourt is so great because it provides a potentially free model of people to sort of get in at the top of the funnel.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that almost marries the idea that the coach was putting on Twitter, which might not be necessarily free, but very low cost way of like playing a game.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows, maybe that aligns with what you're saying, where they might say, well, maybe like the mobile game doesn't really make so much sense, but we're going to make a mobile collection game instead.
Yeah. And I think this kind of goes back to that, what Coach was saying in the non-custodial wallet piece, where it's like, I personally would prefer to have, the ability for the community to build 100 things and let the one or two really interesting ones bubble up, rather than, having the Top Shot team have to kind of come down and say, okay, we're going to bet that this is the concept that's going to win, put a bunch of money and effort into it. And then maybe it wins, maybe it doesn't, and a lot of the stuff you just don't know, right? You don't know what's going to take off. You don't know what the trends are, what's going to resonate with people. And by just kind of giving the community the ability to experiment and try, and you kind of naturally bubble up the best stuff. I like that approach. That's, kind of how I do things in general. So I appreciate how they're doing that. But, I do think they could do more with the kind of more common moments, the collectible aspect, the trading aspect of things. And I do hope they can do something there.
Cool. Yeah, me too. I'm very curious. I'm continually very curious about this product, which is so great.
For sure.
I guess the last question I wanted to ask you on Top Shot. So we touched on it a little bit during the avatar discussion when we started out. Yeah. What was and especially as someone who follows trends of businesses and watches as you sort of predict how they're going and decide how much work or effort you want to put into them, how are you feeling, especially as someone who joined in February, when you saw things going poorly and you saw sentiment going poorly? If that was your startup that you were looking at, like, what was your reaction at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I have been as a startup person, excuse me, um, so often it's really, really hard to tell if an idea is going to go anywhere or if a market is going to continue in a certain direction or whatever. The only thing you can really bet on is the people and just kind of their track record and your experience with what they have done up until that point. And, again, it just keeps going back to that team, just seeing how they were able to execute, knowing all the pressure and all the work that they were under. And, I really felt like they were doing the best job that they could. Did they make mistakes? Sure. And some of that led to some of the market downturn. But I think also some of the market downturn was you've got some people who are in there, maybe not for the right reasons and needed to kind of be a little bit of a shakeout. Like, I don't think that was necessarily a bad thing long term. And, at the time, I definitely, was not as optimistic as I am now, for sure, but I was still very optimistic. And I just felt like, you know what, this is a startup. They're doing so much better than 99% of other startups out there. And I think, other people are judging them compared to like bigger companies and companies that have had a lot more time and resources to go and do things. And, to be able to execute at the level they did, even though it was kind of this downturn, still felt really bullish to me. So I continued to want to be excited and play with the product. And also, the community helped a lot, right? Like just hanging out with people on Twitter, like that's just fun. Like it's just a fun hobby. And, for me, like I'm not a huge investor in top, like I don't have a high valuation of my moments or anything like that. For me, it's really about the playing with the product and having fun and playing the little mini games that they put in there with the challenges, all that stuff. I just enjoy that. And so it's more of a game for me than like a investment per se. So that also, maybe changes my perspective. I think if people were looking at it more as an investment, I do feel for those people because, it's real money at stake here and not great to be able to, maybe you were buying into something that was said that didn't end up happening. And I do, appreciate that people would be upset about that.
Yeah, I agree. And, it's funny because when I joined, I kind of fell into that whirlwind and I thought, whoa, I found something really early and it's going to change everything. And I invested a little more than I would normally. But I just say it again and again. It's amazing how much has changed in my own mindset about how I thought the product was one thing and it's totally evolved into something completely different for me. And I used to kind of not understand people who talked about, oh, it's about the community. I mean, you could even say this about NFT projects right now, but in Top Shot's case, it truly is. And it's amazing how much a good product can invigorate and keep a community sustained like this. I feel like I've never truly seen anything like it. And I don't know when we will, it's just crazy to me, actually.
Yeah. It's very rare. And again, I spend a ton of time looking at early stuff and seeing, trying to, identify things as they're kind of popping. And like, this stuff doesn't come around very often. A team like Dapper and the way they're executing and the way that this product has gone on, it's really unique. And so it's just been really fun to be a part of that.
Yeah. And now they're just continually building up and building up and building up. It's almost like it feels like the Michael Jordan Bulls just like picking off the best free agents. And
right.
it's like this isn't even fair anymore. But the last thing I just want to touch on is I actually lived in Seattle when Kevin Durant was a rookie when he got drafted. And I went to games and when the whole top of the stadium where I could afford seats was chanting "Save our Sonics." So I feel that I feel that same way that you're feeling. They need the Sonics back. And but what was so interesting too was, and this like has nothing to do with Top Shot, but when I would watch those games, Kevin Durant would get in the game as a rookie, and for like the first 3 quarters, he seemed almost like a little bit skittish. And then all of a sudden in the 4th quarter, literally, I meant to maybe 3 games, and I think it's happened to every single game. And the 4th quarter, Kevin Durant would just flip a switch and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm Kevin Durant," and all of a sudden he would just get aggressive and just like take over the 4th quarter, and it was so amazing to watch.
Yeah, oh, that's so fun. Yeah, I miss the Sonics. It's so funny walking around town. Like you still see graffiti of like, "Bring back the Sonics," and like, I do think it's coming. Like I'm just, I'm an optimist in general, but it feels like it's going to be the next couple of years. We'll see that happen. So
I think so.
We've got a hockey team. So I was watching the Kraken the other night, which is cool.
Oh, that's true.
it's kind of giving me hope. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's a cool logo too, the Kraken. I
Oh, I
like
love
that
that
one.
logo. Yeah.
Yeah, Seattle's a really vibrant sports town. It can't be much
Yeah.
longer until they get an NBA team.
Yeah.
All right, so let's change gears for a sec. I've got you for like a little bit longer. So I want to hear about this project. All right, so your NFT project. First of all, how did you come up with this idea, and what made you decide to go from someone who's very much into like, how do I improve Top Shot to I want to make my own NFT project?
Yeah. So, I've been an entrepreneur for a while. My background career wise is, started at Microsoft, great company, just felt like big company culture isn't for me. And so I wanted to do my own thing. So it's about 10 years ago, started my own company and ran that for about 7 years. And then, I've been at a startup studio for the past 4 years or so, working on early stage ideas, helping to build out companies. And so I'm constantly kind of coming up with ideas and thinking of things that could be interesting. And I've also been really involved in kind of AI, machine learning, keeping track of what's going on in that space. And one thing that's been really interesting to me has been kind of these generative art models that have been coming up, and it's one of these things that started 5 years ago with things that would create art, but it was very random and it wasn't that great. And then you kind of see some steps happening in the past year where people are building out better and better models, and critically adding this innovation recently where not only is it random art that's created, but you can actually have some control over what's created. So you could say, I want a painting of a tree, and you get something that hopefully looks like a painting of a tree. And so it does feel like we've kind of hit that inflection point where the tech is there, the algorithms are there. And this is something I look for as an entrepreneur, is like, where's that inflection point where the technology is ready, or at least close to ready, but most people don't know about it, or you have to be really techie, or a coder or machine learning person to understand how to use these things. And so that to me was like a trigger of, hey, this could be something that I could build a project around. And this is an area I'm passionate about, and I love NFTs, and just started to put the pieces together of how could we kind of use NFTs and this whole new way of building things, and layer that on top of this algorithmic art. And I think there's some really good fits for both those.
And when you say you were inspired by algorithmic art, did this have something to do also with this explosion of interest in the NFT market on like art blocks, for example?
I think it's a little bit separate. So, in general, NFTs have done such wonders for digital art in general, and it's probably not a coincidence that you're seeing this spike in research and improvements in algorithms alongside, for the first time in history, the ability to actually own, a digital piece of artwork. And obviously, like art blocks, I love what they're doing. I mean, I think there's a ton of super interesting stuff going on in NFTs, and lots of cool avatar projects, right? I did an avatar project. I think those are cool and great. But I love to see different stuff, like with what Art Blocks is doing. And I think that's another, thing that I wanted to do here, which is, wanted to do something other than kind of your standard PFP. Not that there's anything wrong with those, but I just felt like, hey, let's do something new and something a little bit creative, and something that, is going to be a little bit different. And we'll try it out. We'll see if it works.
And so what do you think is like the big difference maker of your project? I mean, it might be obvious to some who've looked into it, but what makes your project different?
Yeah. And so I'll take a step back too. I realize I haven't even talked about kind of what it is or what the idea is. So, so the idea here is that it's it's an NFT game, and you mint this fictional art student, and they can actually create real art. And so you complete these assignments every week where you can kind of put in some, words and phrases and get some pieces of art out. And at the end of the semester, which is about 3 months, you submit your favorite pieces, and we'll go through and have this curation process and pull out the very best of those, and kind of have those minted in sort of like a curated art blocks type of collection of kind of the best of the best. And really the theory here is that with these techniques, if you can get enough artwork out there, and get enough creative people kind of playing around and coming up with the best combination of words and phrases and ideas to create this art, that if you can create 100,000 of these and pick out the top 100, those top 100 are going to be pretty good, right? And like, we're not at a point where this algorithm can spit out amazing art every single time. You really do kind of have to pick off that sort of cream of the crop of the output here in order to get the most interesting pieces. And I think like people haven't been doing this. And so if we're able to do this in the way that I hope that we can, in 3 months, we'll have the best collection of this art that's out there. And we'll keep doing it every 3 months, and we'll keep adding to this collection. And this is where, I kind of tend to think long term, but if someday, this method of making art becomes really popular, people will look back and they'll say, hey, when was the first example of this? And where can we find the best examples of this? And I feel like this Muse School collection is going to be the answer to that. And there's so much more we can do in terms of like the metaverse evolves, we can make a museum over time and build all this stuff up. But all that's in the future. For now, really the focus is we're going to mint those students. We're going to have people, each create 20, 30 pieces of art, and then we'll pick out the best ones and we'll see what we get. So that's kind of the idea.
So I have a couple follow-up questions to that. So first of all, I've seen other generative art builders online.
Yep.
So is the one you're using very similar? Is it something more proprietary, something that you can't just find online? Can you tell me about that?
Absolutely. No, it's all open source. And this is a big part of it too, is, it's not really about the algorithms themselves. It's about this bringing people together with kind of this shared, incentive to create that, very, very best layer. But yes, we're using all open source algorithms, and there's a couple different ones out there that we'll kind of use. And over time, I really hope for this to be kind of a cyclical thing where, we can use some of the revenue generated from this project to go back and fund some of these open source research initiatives. And then that will help to improve those algorithms. We can try them out, get some feedback, get this thing going, and really work closely with that research communities, that are building up around these to kind of help everybody kind of work together. So I kind of see Muse School as providing the community and kind of this incentive and kind of the NFT side of really being able to monetize some of this art, and then feeding that back into that research community and improving it over time.
Yeah, I think the layer that's added here is this curation layer, especially when you say you're going to involve like judges,
Yep.
things like that, because I think, a devil's advocate approach, or someone who's playing the devil's advocate might say, well, I can go generate something on one of those free generators. So what is this Muse School offering that's different? Besides the part that you are benefiting other organizations to like advance the area, that's very cool. But that's my understanding, is just like that the curation layer is something that you don't get by going and sitting on your laptop and doing it by yourself.
100%. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And the other thing I was wanting to say was the NFT space in general is moving so ridiculously fast right now. And this model is a lot more standard, almost like a university model. And it's like slower and more engaged. Is that intentionally done? Like, you don't want people minting 30 students and not completing the assignments because I think they can make a quick flip. Like, who is your ideal participant?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, which is, yes, this is a slower, longer term vision. And, it's not going to be set up for those quick flips. And actually, a lot of the longer term incentives will be around, letting everybody who's part of this Muse School, the alumni will be able to actually own part of that, permanent collection and the eventual museum. And so, this is something where, sticking around and creating great art and joining the community is something that hopefully will be fun and something interesting that you can kind of do over time and build up your own little personal collection. It's not going to be that quick flip kind of thing. And I think that's, again, very intentional. I think it's great for people to, make money off NFTs, and the speculation part's really fun. But I start to worry that, the people who are really benefiting here are the people who are making these projects and able to hype them the best, and also the whales who are able to buy into 100 of them. And if 99 fail and 100, 1,000 X's, they've made money, right? But the rest of us haven't. And so I just don't want to, that's just not, I don't want to be another voice of, inside that very loud chorus. Really want to do something a little bit slower, a little bit different. And we'll see if it works, maybe, maybe it will, maybe it won't. We'll see.
Well, that's kind of what you do on the daily. But it's super interesting. I'm very curious about like the collaborative and community aspect here because it's very different. It's really, I'm a part in so many discords right now, and it's hard enough to just check a notification. So I think that will be your largest challenge.
Yep.
And I think if you can get it right, it'll feel like you've kind of cracked the code in a way, like you've done something incredibly different from what's being done right now.
Yeah. And I think so much of that is like starting from day one of trying to bring in the right people in the right community with the right incentives. And I feel like, I'm kind of very fortunate to have people, in the Top Shot community that, really kind of feels like they're here for the right reasons, right? They've been around for a long time through the ups and downs, and they're really excited about the potential of NFTs long term. And so to kind of bootstrap the community with those people. And also next step for me is reaching out into that generative art community and getting people who are really passionate about, this art and everything that's going on there. And so, again, just trying to find that right combination of people to go and do this. And also to your point about taking a lot of time, I totally appreciate that and agree that can be a concern. There's lots of fun stuff that I've got planned in terms of making it much easier for people to create art so that if you miss a week or you're out or you just don't feel creative that week, we've got plenty of ways for your students to be creating art, even if you don't have your own, inputs and ideas. And so that's all kind of in the future, but it's definitely a thing that I'm top of mind for me. So.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if you could even program your student. So it's not even like you're programming the art, you're actually programming your student, what they decide to come up with on their own, maybe, who knows?
Yes. Lots of fun ideas there for sure.
But yeah, this feels like a very unique and different idea, which I really appreciate in this sort of this space of feels like a whole lot of copycats and generative traits that look exactly like the one you saw 2 days before. So I truly think that's interesting, and I appreciate that, and I will definitely be keeping a close eye on that. And I wish you a lot of luck with that. And I hope that you don't leave behind Top Shot creation completely, because I feel like you're a very key contributor in the space.
No, I mean, Top Shot is definitely a passion / obsession for me. So I'm not leaving anytime soon.
Yeah.
And I just love working on different things, and especially with Top Shot, a lot of the stuff I build is kind of one-off, kind of quick stuff that I can kind of whip up, send out to the community, and I plan on continuing to do that when new ideas and things come up. And yeah, it should be a lot of fun.
Well, that's good news. Well, Moment Nerd, thank you so much for joining me today. Where should people go learn more about you and your project?
Yeah, so the usual Twitter. I am at the Moment Nerd on Twitter, and then the Muse School NFT Project is at museschoolnft.com. If you follow me on Twitter, I'm doing a few giveaways, kind of getting some people, just bring some awareness to that project and what we're trying to do, because it is a little bit different, needs a little explanation. And so, yeah, go ahead and follow me. Maybe even if you're not interested, I'll give away some moments to you. So.
Well, that sounds great. Well, thank you so much for making the time, and I will be keeping a close eye on what you create for Top Shot, what you create for NFL, let's call it play action, and what you create for your own personal NFT project. So the Muse School. So I'm really looking forward to it, and thanks again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.